You ever notice how when a new motorcycle comes out, suddenly everyone seems to be saying the same thing? Not exactly same words, but the same conclusion. That's what made me want to make this video. I have this habit. Whenever I start seeing a wave of content around a specific product, doesn't matter what it is, something in me just switches on. I start looking past what's being said and start asking why it's being said and how. I'm not against reviews. I'm not against promotion. That's just how new products reach people. I get it. But here's what I keep noticing. Reviewer A says the power figures ain't impressive on paper, but honestly, out on the road, it feels more than enough for everyday riding. Reviewer B says, I don't really care about specs. What I know is this thing pulls. And realistically, how many of us actually going to push it to its limit anyway? Different words, different personalities, identical conclusion. And if you were new to motorcycles, if you were still figuring things out, that kind of a consistency can feel like confirmation. Like, okay, 12 people said the same thing. It must be true. It's a bit like being in school and seeing everyone carrying the same study guide. You don't know if it's the best one, but when enough people are holding it, you start assuming it must be worth looking at. That's normal, and honestly, it's hard to avoid. Here's the reality behind it. When a manufacturer launches a new model, speed matters. Getting a message out, getting people talking, that's the priority. So what happened is a relatively small group of people all receive the same talking points, the same press experience, sometimes the same weekend with the bike, and then they all go make content separately, but from the same starting point. Limited time on the bike, manufacturers control the conditions, and the personal experience is always subjective anyway. So what does that actually mean for you? It means the scale of the hype doesn't tell you much about how good the bike actually is. It means popular doesn't automatically means right for you. And it means the features being highlighted are the one the manufacturer choose to highlight, which may or may not have anything to do with what you actually need. There's also something worth thinking about. With popular bikes specifically, a model with a huge user base will have its flaws exposed faster and more clearly than something niche. The good and the bad both get amplified. That's actually useful information if you know how to look for it. This is why I pay attention to who's doing the recommending. A reviewer who spent a weekend with a bike and a real owner who's been living with it for years. They were not going to be looking at the same things. One is focused on the experience of discovering a product. The other is dealing with the reality of owning it. Take the BMW RT. I've been riding mine for nearly 10 years. If I sat down to make a video about it today, I promise you, it will sound nothing like any review you have ever seen online. Because after that much time, what you care about shifts completely. So when I see a wave of identical content around a new bike, I keep a little distant. Not because I think anyone is lying, but because I know the format has limits. If I was seriously looking to buy, I'd use the reviews as a starting point, but I'll be asking different questions. Not, is this bike good? But is this bike good for what I actually do? Those are two completely different questions. I'll always take in information. I just won't let it do the deciding for me. Maybe that's worth thinking about for you too. Not what the reviews say, but what you actually need, and whether these two things are even pointing in the same direction.